Civil unrest is a response to an SHTF event where basic resources are no longer available. There's a big event, basic resources aren't available to you. You call 911, you can't really rely on anybody to come and help you. You're responsible for your own safety, your own security, and dealing with the immediate aftermath of such event. Now, people could respond by coming together. People could respond by panicking and turning on one another. And you have to be prepared for a situation where you have to deal with people who are panicking. So, some things to keep in mind. First, when it comes to just moving about, wherever you're at, you got to worry about your immediate security. If you got to get to a shelter, do that first before you do anything. Next thing, of course, gather information, gather resources, form a plan. These are some things that you might want to consider, things at least I'm going to be considering if there's a really bad situation I have to really deal with it. I'm worried about civil unrest. Another thing is when I'm around people, I'm going to have to pay very close attention to how people are responding to the event. I definitely don't want to be in large crowds, but I also don't want to be isolated either. I don't want to be in a place where I'm all alone. There's not a lot of witnesses around. Now, even when you get around some people, you got to keep in mind the bystander effect could still be relevant. Bystander effect is when there's so many people around and something happens, people just assume that somebody else around them would actually do something to help the situation, and they just move on and go about their own business. So that's why you can have a situation where you have a bunch of people around and somebody's being attacked or something bad's happened to somebody and nobody really responds because they assume that somebody else is going to. All right, how you interact with people is going to be really important. If you have a bad habit of just always looking down at your cell phone when you're in public, that's something you might want to examine. Even I do that at times. I catch myself doing that. It's not a good idea. I try to do it when I'm at least in my own room or something, but you don't want to just be, obviously, even if there's a crisis, you might be trying to call home to check on your loved ones. Well, even if you're doing that, it might be a good idea if you can put it on speakerphone and keep your eyes around, open. And that's another thing, your head. Your eyes should always be moving around, at least scanning your area to see what's going on around you. If you're getting around other people, just be mindful of who's around you, who could be potentially a threat. Also, be aware of where people's hands are at. Now, they could be saying one thing, but look at where their hands are at. See if they're trying to hide their hands. That's something that's really important. You have to directly look down, but it's something you should just be aware of, especially if your hands are occupied. Be aware of what's going on with your hands. If you're trying to call home and see about a loved one, make sure if you're carrying your gun in your right hand, make sure you're talking to the person with maybe the speaker on, when that phone could be in your left hand. Because if something happens, and somebody goes after you and they try to attack you when they think you're distracted or vulnerable, you at least have a hand available to go for your gun. So little things like that. Yeah, of course, if your gun's on your left side, then you might want to go use your right hand to use your phone. So little things like that. Make sure your hands are available. I know this even in regular life. When I get around people, I'm carrying groceries. Sometimes I make an effort to put all the groceries in my left hand. And if I had two guns, obviously I have an option. I'm not trying to get into a conflict with anybody, but I'm just aware of where my hands are at, where people are in relation to me. In that type of heightened situation, you should very much be aware of what's going on around you, what people are doing. It's important to build some positive habits before you end up in that type of situation. For example, when I'm out and about, I'm always headed somewhere. Even if I'm just exploring, I'm very much focused on getting to a place, still aware of what's going on around me, but I try to do it with some level of confidence, because if you look like you're lost and you look like you're scared of, in a bad situation, predators could potentially take advantage of that. Now, of course, this all assumes that you're out in public. Ideally, if it's truly a civil unrest situation, you want to be at home. You want to be off the streets. A lot of times in civil unrest, there could be curfews in place. That's really important. If you're traveling for whatever reason, you might want to avoid highways or any place where it's difficult to really escape. Like for example, if you're in an urban area, you can always drive off into a parking lot and get out and leave through the parking lot to another area. There's always places to drive. But a lot of times in rural areas, you don't have a lot of options to really drive other places. So you got to be careful on ramps. Maybe somebody set up barriers on ramps, and then you being ambushed. Something to really consider for sure. Your tank. Speaking of vehicles, I'm assuming your gas tank is going to be at least halfway full. You should never let your gas tank get below a half a tank. There's other reasons as well. You don't want the motor in the fuel pump burning out. But anyway, that's just, you don't want to find yourself having to go to a gas station in the middle of a civil unrest situation, because that's not a good place to go anyway. You definitely want to avoid grocery stores, so you want to have plenty of food anyway. Another thing to consider is that you should always be conducting a cost-benefit analysis. What's the cost-benefit of staying in this location? What's the cost-benefit of being around this group? What do I see in this group? What are some patterns that I like? What are some patterns that I don't like as far as their behavior and how they're acting towards one another? Are people turning on one another really fast here? Just, even if you're around some good people, or do they have some questionable people around them? Just things you always got to really be considering. So you got to know when just to leave a certain situation. You can like somebody there, but if there's too many people there who may be compromising your safety, your security, you may have to make a decision that, hey, you're better off just leaving this area. Maybe I can convince a good person to go with me, but if they try to drag it back, you can sort of assess whether you think they're going to try to drag that negative person with them. So there's a lot of little things you got to consider in a civil unrest situation. I just want to get this discussion going, what you guys think about some of these ideas. All right, let's talk about what type of gear would help you in a civil unrest situation. First, you need to have a solid everyday carry. That means having a firearm. That means having some type of light source, handheld light. Even if you have a light on your pistol. I've been carrying a knife. It's a pretty good utility option. That was made by Crate Tacticals. It's a Georgia company, but it's been pretty solid. I've been using it for the last 6 months. But yeah, spare mags, really good idea. I even have a backup gun. That's not really necessary, but it's just an option. But definitely at least have an everyday carry gun, flashlight, and you might want to consider a spare mags and a backup gun. Obviously, there's a lot more to this than just gear. It's a mindset, it's situational awareness. I've started to really home in on that. When I go to restaurants, I make sure I know where the exits are. I make sure my back isn't turned to the exit, make sure I can actually see the exit. These are some little simple things that are really important. Just be mindful of people with their body language, how they look at you, how they look at others, how they're acting around others. Just be a little more alert. Not that I'm living in fear or anything, but just be aware of what's going on. So these are some things that are really important. But anyway, let's get back to the gear. I finally found a use for my GPS bag. It's supposed to be a range bag. I guess I can kind of use it as that, but I'm gonna use it as an organizer for some of my AK mags. As you can tell, these are the steel mags. I'm probably gonna start to get some P mags, some AKP mags, since they weigh less, and weight does become more important when you actually have to walk around with this stuff. Obviously, you can only carry so many bags at once, but the bags help me organize what I do have. All right, here's a bag that's dedicated to 9mm, something you can put together if you're concerned about a major security event. Let's take a look inside. Inside you have several Glock 17 magazines, have a magazine holder. In this compartment you have a tourniquet and a dressing trauma kit. In the back compartment you actually have the Glock 17. Right here, this is my EDC gun bag. Inside you'll find a radio, extra battery, emergency blanket, you have a gauze, chest seal, so a bandage trauma kit, tourniquet back here. I got something to stop the bleeding, hemostatic dressing. Also have my med bag, more dressings, more items to stop the bleeding, fire suppression, fire blanket, fire extinguisher, of course more gauze, chest seal, etc. More tourniquets as well. Can't forget about the scissors and the gloves. Got something for burns. Triangle bandage. If you're in a place like Arizona, you definitely always going to have some extra water around no matter what. I actually recommend everybody has some type of emergency water. You get emergency water packs, just like that. Yeah, obviously plenty of flashlights, plenty of batteries. If you depend on medicines, you want to stock up on extra medicines. If you depend on glasses, you're going to have an extra pair of glasses at least. One in your vehicle, one at home, with the up-to-date prescription. All right, you want to have the right mindset, situational awareness, the right gear, some practical stuff, water, food, maps, some type of radio or something so you know what's going on in a civil unrest type of situation. But planning is also a big part of it as well. Of course, you can have the best plan in the world and things can still go wrong. But the whole idea behind preparedness is give yourself some options in case there is an emergency. So share your thoughts about preparing for civil unrest.